Hello everybody and welcome to this weekly reading. This is for the week of October 4th, 2020. And I do apologize to my regular followers. I just haven't been able to do readings for the past couple weeks, either from an energy perspective or we have some big things moving in our lives, selling our house and such. And so just, this is part of the message is please honor yourself. I ask you to please honor yourself. There's a feeling this week of it's a very prideful kind of energy, and I just want you to really think about when you're just stretched too thin. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot going on in our personal lives because what is going on in the broader stage of things in the world is also a reflection from within us. That so much big, it's actually very exciting change is happening, okay? But it doesn't mean, we are human beings and we have this enormous energy field around us and it has different layers to it. So on the outermost layer is that kind of spiritual or etheric layer of energy. And then I know the emotional layer to be the next level. And then I've got that backwards. Mental layer is next, and then the emotional layer, and then the physical layer where things actually manifest in our bodies and in our life here on the planet. So given just how the image I've been getting for the past few days is all of us are like these pieces of metal. And the word that I was given was we are building this, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, tensile strength. It's the strength of metal that you stretch it and right to the point where it bends, where it gives way. And this is the energy that's happening. But I want you to be respectful to yourself in knowing when you're stretched too thin. Because all of us are in this stretching motion, kind of like Gumbies, and we just have to give ourselves a break and know when you need to stop and refuel. And by that, I mean kind of just take just a step back. It doesn't have to mean that you are a hermit and you go, as they say, do a duvet dive, or have a duvet day where you're just hiding away from everybody, or like the hermit in the tarot, that you're going to go in your cave and find all this wisdom and let the world just be what it is. I think we're all here to be in and of the world, but we are those pieces of metal right now. And I just want you to, as I have been doing, and I've had to learn this the hard way, and I still do. It isn't like I really learned my lesson. You have to know when you have to pull back. I love doing these readings for all of you, probably more than any other thing in my life. My business is my passion. And I love doing these free readings because there is a segment of people that it helps. It's not for everybody. But you gotta know when you just don't have the full up energy to bring yourself to it. And I honor you as listeners of a reading like this, I'm not bringing my full self, and my attention is diverted in all these other directions, and there's other areas of our lives that need more attention, and we need to pay attention to that. And I want you to honor it. I want you to please honor that for yourself. And so that's part of the message. The other thing with this tensile strength, and again, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, these pieces of metal, it's the fact that it's quite amazing that metal can be shaped and stretched and pulled, to a certain degree, and there's a tensile, because you often hear it as this tensile strength. That sort of is part of the process to find out how much area can we cover without totally making ourselves like that first layer of icing that when you're decorating a cake, you put this layer of icing and there's a name for it that I'm not, it's like a crumb layer or something like that. You put this in it, and that's not meant to be pretty. Then you put other layers of the frosting on and make it look pretty. But we're looking at like, what is that sort of base layer? What is the territory we're wanting to cover? And understand that with everything going on, the message that I was given just a few days ago was that this tensile strength is you could think about it very much like a spider's web, in that we absolutely, the more that the world and all of us as beings within this world are pulling and pushing and reaching and doing, all of these movements, I want you to think about the movements of people's passion, their emotion, their mental beliefs, around things, that mentality, that's where our beliefs are. The more that we're like pushing all this movement as energy, okay, just think about it as energy. No right and wrong. There's a lot of like, and doing this. That's the tensile strength I'm talking about. We're actually creating. What's going on under the surface is more like this grand spider's web that is being created, that is creating greater interconnectivity between us, as well as strength. Just like some of the very best spider webs are those that have lots of connector points, and that's all of us. So the world might look like it's crazy town, okay? And parts of your own life might be like, oh my God, what is happening? What circus is this exactly? And still, what I want to tell you is that under the surface, there is energy being built that is actually interconnecting all of us. No matter what, any of those layers I talked about of your energy field, no matter what exists in those layers. And that includes our beliefs. Things like politics can't overrule this interconnectedness that I'm talking about. And what I'm seeing and being told is that those bonds, those connections are getting stronger the more that the world, every one of us, is doing our part to do this. We're like, there's so much energy moving. And that's really the sign of a really good spider's web. It can withstand a wind. It can withstand, and it's built for capturing, nourishment for the spider and its babies, It's meant to capture the fly as it comes in. But can you imagine the force of that? That's the tensile strength that I'm being told of and shown. Okay, so I just wanted to share those couple of things with you, but also this idea that because there's so much energy movement that is pretty powerful right now, to pay attention, to literally have pride in your own experience here, in your personal life, to know when you need to it's just all I'm seeing is you taking just one foot and putting it behind the other foot, and it's just like pulling back so you're not feeling the force quite as powerfully. But understand that our forces and energy movement are creating something that is going to be much more solid. And when I say interconnected, that is a sense of really caring about one another. It's really about how can I help you, and then how is it that by doing so, there is a benefit to me as well. And that is seamless. We don't even have to think about it. It simply is an interchange of energy that isn't about right and wrong, or it isn't about taking a side. It's more that we have the interconnectedness where it can come to a win-win kind of a situation. And I just want you to think here, let's get much more broad than politics. Okay, let's get into a greater expanded place, okay? Politics really has our attention right now, but this is exactly what I'm talking about with one foot behind the other. Just disengage just a little bit, you know? You don't need to hide away, but it's just knowing when there is fatigue there for you, or like you really need to focus on where you're going to devote your energy, because again, we're building this tensile strength, and that piece of metal that is you is already stretched pretty thin, okay? So then when I tapped in for the actual theme for this week's reading, I was given the Magician card, okay? So I just want to tell you just briefly, the Magician is part of what's known as the major arcana of the Tarot. And I'm not a believer that the Tarot is anything scary. It's all in how you interpret it, okay? And each reader is different. And I look at it as the journey of what is traditionally called the Fool, but I call that figure within all of us the dreamer. It's to be able to see that there's way more going on here on the planet than we can tangibly see. By the time something has manifested in our physical experience, remember as I was talking about these different layers of the energy field, that's literally how you manifest through energy, okay? And some people are really good at it, and some people struggle. And so as it comes down into the physical, that's kind of a done deal, is what I want to say to you. But the Magician is the first stop. It's the very first tool in the tool belt that the dreamer meets on his great journey through what is known as the major arcana of the Tarot. These are a set of, I think it's 21 different, I want to call it stopping points. It's like being on it's like walking the Camino, you know, being on this great trek, this great journey. And each card within the major arcana is a tool for our tool belt. It is something that we are here to remember, and every one is equally important. But where is the first stop on this grand trek? It is being introduced to our inner magician, okay? And the Magician is just, I think it's really powerful that this is the first card in that journey, because it's what we end up coming back to by the end of the journey. It's just like the Wizard of Oz. You've always had the power within you, my dear. You know, she's always had that ability to have the magic of the ruby slippers, even when she didn't have the ruby slippers. It's all about, it's where the role of our belief and the use of our own personal energy and treating it with respect and pride and integrity. That is what the Magician reminds us, is that our energy has an impact on the world. You'll see, it may be tough to see, but above his head, the Magician always has this infinity symbol. And that's exactly how it works. Like, you put the energy out, you get feedback, you tune on that a little bit, you know, put the energy back out, you keep getting feedback. It's just like this. You are a co-creator in that experience. You are putting out energy. That is what the Magician always wants to remind you. You've always had the power within you, my dear. You've always had it. So the 3 choices this week, I'm going to lead with a crystal, and that was the picture you saw at the beginning of the video. You can choose more than one crystal, but this is what the Magician within you, because remember, every stop on the Major Arcana tour, this grand trek that the dreamer makes, every one of those stops is a tool, every one. But the inner Magician is what it all boils down to, is that our energy, our outlook, the use of those different levels of our energy field. If we really take pride like a shopkeeper, we really take pride in our creation here, that is then what goes out into the world and helps us to create on that physical level, which is the last level of the energy field. That's when it's made tangible. Okay? So each crystal has a message, but then each one is going to have a spirit animal message as well, which is from the Spirit Animal Oracle deck. Okay? So the first one up, the first crystal, it's a beautiful piece, very rough piece of amber, which is a resin from trees. And so this is known to me as open heart. Okay? And the real sense of this piece is the grit of life. And this is another message that I've been given recently, is that when we transition, we just go into non-physical. We're still very much part of the world here, whether or not that is your belief. That's things that I have been shown. We're still very much a part of the earth, but just in a different form, okay? And when we're looking back, sort of having this life review, we see how these very gritty, what some might call mundane, the literal stepping through day by day, making it happen. It's that stuff that we're actually going to reflect on the most. There are certainly memorable moments, children being born, getting married, buying a home, getting a new job, there's some big events. But in actuality, the soulfulness part of you looks at what I call, this is open-hearted grit. This is being here on the earth. It's, as I was saying in the intro, it's this sense of we're meant to be in and of life here on this planet. We're not meant to I'm just going to float above all this. I'm going to get on my magic carpet and I'm just going to float up here. And you all can be craziness down there, and I'm going to pull myself above all of that. That really lately has been shown to me as, that's my interpretation of spiritual bypassing, of using divinity, your soulfulness, your higher self, whatever, to just be I see this professor figure, I can't be involved with that drivel down there. Oh no. Open heart here says, you are in and of this life. This is what this inner magician within you, if you chose this crystal, it really can serve you to really think about these gritty moments in your life. And these if you really start looking at this in a different way, a different perspective, okay? There are many angles that you can look at anything in your life or about the experience or philosophy of living. Many different angles. And so this piece, for me, is a reminder from your inner magician that it's just so important to honor these moments of it's why I'm saying from the intro, I need to step back in my energy a little bit, maybe for a couple of weeks, maybe a whole month. I love doing these readings and everything, but I gotta make sure that my tank is full so I can do a really good job for you. And there's just nothing wrong with that, but that's living in the grit. That's what your inner magician wants you to pay attention to. When is the tank pretty low? Or do you have a leak in the tank? And this is often my cue that I need to get a different perspective, is I get really snappy. I've been really snappy at my family for the past week. I don't know. It's just something, it's this grittiness. And those are our cues that, okay, it's time to just simplify a little bit and to understand. I want you to know From a soulfulness perspective, the magic is in the grit. The magic is in the tough stuff. And by that, I don't mean just knock down, drag out blowouts, or deciding to leave a relationship. It's much more simple than that. It's literally like, oh, I sent that email and I wonder if they took it this way. It's like the role of worry and anxiety and fear sometimes. Those are real things. And your soulfulness really eats those up with a great big spoon. Give me some more. Because this is, if you think about it, just on a grander scale, those are moments that really help to shape your soul and that you will remember. And I bet you can think back to maybe who you were 5 years ago, and that you might have had a certain kind of response when you reached out or you went in a direction and you had a typical kind of response, and maybe it was snarky, or maybe you were being walked all over and had no boundaries, or whatever it may be. And things shift over time. We start to see like, oh, okay, well, I've tried that out. That's the gritty stuff, right? And it doesn't have to be big. That's the thing. It's the little stuff that does incite things like worry and anxiety and fear as examples. So it's not about spiritually bypassing that and saying, oh, I'm just going to be positive and I'm just going to like not acknowledge that over there. It's about being in and of life when you're here. That's how your soul grows, and that you look back at very lovingly as you have a life review. Okay, so not trying to be morbid here and like stick us in the grave and talk about what that's going to be about, but it's more, there's this message from your inner magician that wants to look forward in that way so that it can give you the value of perspective you can have now. Okay, the gritty stuff matters. So then what is your spirit animal message? And then brown bear spirit, and it says take time out. Just like the bear, very active through all the seasons, and then boom, you come to the winter, and it's that putting one foot in back of the other. It's just and I need to hibernate now. I need to recharge my energy so that I can be busy for those next number of months. So this is what the magician, remember what I said in the intro, the infinity symbol is always above your inner magician's head. Understand that the energy that you put out equates to what is coming back to you, okay? And very challenging things are part of the grit. And they, again, don't have to be big. I'm underlining that key message there, okay? It's wanting to be said a lot for your reading. Little minor irritations, or something that's on a grander scale, but those are the things that really make a difference in the soul. And it's just about knowing, given, the massive amount of grit that we're all kind of wading through right now, it's knowing when you need to take that step back, to take time out, and to say, okay, maybe I need to look at this situation a little differently. Why am I always putting the blame on myself when I don't even know what that other person is thinking, and maybe they're not even thinking anything of that email or that phone conversation or a quick off-the-cuff conversation because you meet downtown or something, or a meeting, at work. This is some of the best grit, is stuff about people taking things the wrong way. But remember the infinity symbol. It starts with your perspective. If you go into a conversation like, oh, I don't know, this is going to be a little bumpy, and I'm hoping they take it the right way. And you bring all that worry and fear and anxiety into something. Be aware your energy matters. Be aware, and those are moments that help to define the soul. They help to fine tune it. That's what the magician's job is. And to understand that your energy plays a very powerful role. Okay? And just to give yourself part of the take time out here message from this brown bear is about allowing yourself to have a perspective. Just personally. You don't have to talk about it with anybody. You don't have to journal about it. You don't have to perseverate about it. Just a little contemplation on, trying out a different perspective. Trying to see, okay, this is some of that grit that Kat was talking about, that was coming forward, that this is actually the good stuff. Okay, the very mundane and the very, seemingly in the scope of everything, little trivial matters that we kind of just, we get all tumbled up by it. Understand that is meaningful grit. And that at times we just can't even get our perspective to work for us. We can't even begin to start thinking about that as a positive thing. But it's really important. It's the daily, as a friend and colleague of mine talks about with work, it's the keeping the lights on work. This is something that I'm helping with at my corporate work a lot more these days, is what I call potpourri. They always laugh when I say that. But it's the stuff, it's the quick hitter stuff. It's just walking through your life and this daily kind of little tumbleweed that appears all over the place. And can you walk through that still with a straight spine, with your head up, every now and then looking up at the sky and saying, yep, the sun still comes out, and paying tribute to and having respect for those little tumbleweed moments. That's very much this open heart energy. It's just the daily grit, but it's the keeping the lights on. It's walking through your life. And those are very defining moments. They're very important. And so can you feel the magic in that when you start to see how important those moments are? I dare say they're more important than the big stuff, because we won't have any trouble remembering all the big stuff, and that's lots to celebrate, big jumps in our lives. But the soul is tweaked on a much finer level. It, again, tensile strength, as I was saying in the intro. It's really about getting down to that very fine tuning. And that's only done in those grit kind of moments. They are your power, actually. Crystal number 2, I hope I'm saying this right, is iolite. And this piece is known to me as riverbed. And the cornerstone of the message behind this crystal, it's this beautiful deep, deep blue. I really love this piece. It's super smooth. It's got these cracks of white lightning through it. So there is, this crystal to me holds a spectrum energy where if we can get firm footing, like if you're walking on a riverbed, there are these river stones that are there. And if they have been there a while, they're anchored in place and you're not sort of moving all over the place as you try to walk that path. But it really serves you, if we stay with this analogy, to be careful as you place each footstep, to be sure that rock is pretty stable, and to be able to flow with the fact that there's constant moving water, and the meaning behind that is constant moving emotion. Constantly, and sometimes There are parts of the river that have a tremendous current to them. Some parts are deeper than others. Some of the rocks are not as stable and anchored. Some are not in a place where you can even get your foot put squarely upon it to walk that path. So to me, the message with the iolite, with riverbed, is really slow your pace. Okay, I'm really getting this. Slow your pace and really pay attention to where you're choosing to put those footsteps along your path. And again, we're talking about your inner magician having a message for you here. It pays off for you to take your time, and we're speaking about the energy of this week, to be able to really test out. Does that feel pretty solid to me? Okay, so I'm sticking with an analogy here, but what I'm meaning in terms of real life is, let's say you need to have a conversation with your supervisor. Play out those scenarios of the different ways. Understand there are so many options for how you can approach a relationship, a conversation, a change of some sort that you want to make in your life. There's so many ways to go with that. And so play those things out in your mind ahead of time and say, okay, I'm working with the analogy here, and I'm walking my riverbed, and I see that there is a fork up ahead, and I think I want to start paving the way to be in a place where I can make a decision about which way I want to go. But that's going to take some conversation with my supervisor. And so if I go about it in this way, using this as the focus of our conversation, what does that kind of look like? And what I really want you to focus on, again, this is heavy water analogy here. Focus on how it feels in your body as you think about that option. You will know. You will know this feels comfortable to me. I can, because you're flowing with the conversation. You're directing it, but you're also flowing with it and creating opportunity, as the magician does, for this interconnected dialogue, for this unveiling. How many times have you had a conversation with anybody and you start off talking about one thing, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know what? Well, I have a friend who does that. I should link you two up, because I bet you could come up with something pretty amazing. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've all had those instances, and it's because we took a certain tact in how we went about that conversation. Just like taking your time, and Abraham Hicks, one of my favorite kind of spiritual energies, I really love this idea of pre-paving. But it's an idea of like already setting things up for how it's going to go. But instead, what I want you to see is there's multiple timeline options. There's multiple ways of going at something. And this is what I'm saying about walking on that riverbed. You've got to take the time to feel out what feels right when it's a really important conversation or a really important change or whatever it is in your life. Take the time to think about those options, because that's always your choice. You don't have to just launch into something and then, oh my God, like there's some big blow up, or something gets cut off, or somebody gets offended, or whatever. Just kind of, because if you feel good, if you feel at ease and at flow with having a certain tact as you go into something, the energy you put out translates out there in the world. It matters. Think about that. That's the magician spirit. It's the energy that you put out that gives you feedback, that then you take and you tweak it, and then you put it back out there and get more feedback, and da. Your energy matters. Your approach to things matters. You are the dictator of that for your personal experience in this life. And this is a week, I feel, for you to play with this. Your inner magician wants to play with you, wants to be like a best friend out on the playground, and let's go try the swings, and let's try this new game. And again, it's the enjoyment of taking your time to test out those riverbed rocks. Does this feel good? Does this feel kind of stabilizing? Does this feel like I'm taking a chance, but I'm ready to take a chance because I'm flexible enough to be able to catch myself even if the rock is not solid? Some of us work really well on unsolid ground. That's okay too. Okay, so taking the time to really think through those possibilities just privately and feel them for yourself. And then as you flow, that word keeps wanting to be used for you. As you flow into a conversation, a situation, a change in a setting or a relationship, there's so many things. This is your whole life. It affects all of it. But if you feel at ease, especially emotionally, if you feel at ease as you're going into that, the energy flows just like that infinity symbol that is above your head every day in every moment. But a lot of times we just go, wah. We just kind of ignore it, you know. We have a part to play in our own experience. So have fun with it. See the possibility of it. And see what feels good and flowing to you. What feels right. You know, does it honestly really feel right to you? And my guess is 90% of people would say no. If you've got a difficult conversation to have, to go in, dukes up. Boom. I'm just going to go at this. And I'm just going to confront it. And I can say with absolute sincerity that in my own life, that has never worked out well for me. Never. Because what happens when you go in attack mode? Whatever your energy is intermixing with, again, the infinity, that's the energy you're bringing to it. Duh, there's going to be defensive energy coming back at you because you're like this. And literally, other beings can feel that even before you open your mouth. They know because it's illuminating your entire energy field when we've got that sort of very strong kind of attack mode. Okay, so it's having fun thinking about those possibilities ahead of time. So the animal, spirit animal energy is the badger spirit. Be fearless and bold. Isn't he just this sweet little thing? But you see the black and white there. All right, lots of black and white. And this is our world. This is three-dimensional living on the planet. Right now, energetically, there is other options available beyond 3D. And what I mean by that is I only believe it if I see it. Like only tangible stuff is real. You know, it's a little bit harder to reach for things like spirituality or certainly intuition and psychic ability, synchronicities that happen in our lives, animal medicine, like these things that are they're not tangible at all. But my guess is anybody listening to this reading, you have some kind of interest in that area. You find that kind of intriguing, even if you don't understand it or don't even necessarily believe it, but it intrigues you. And this is the thing, is the badger is willing to really show up boldly and to be able to kind of mix, because the badger is the mix of the two. You know, it is the mix of the black and white. And what I feel here is the yin-yang symbol, the magic of that symbol and why it is so alchemizing for so many people is that there is a seed of the opposite color within those two swirls. okay? And that's what I get with the Badger energy. But it's being willing to try out. This is what I was saying. It's being willing to try out. Like, what if I went down that pathway and went about the conversation in this way versus doing it this way? And what about that way? And there might be ways that have to do with you're going to start out the conversation with a question. You're not even going to start with a statement. You're not even going to start with, look, this is what I'm thinking and blah, 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 blah. Maybe it's wanting to be an actual discourse that's real and true and flowing, where both of your ideas come together and create something completely new. That's working in these higher energies that are available on the planet. And the one that is going to become more and more prevalent is 5D energy. And that is not about taking sides. That's about holding all of it. It's not always taking a very masculine approach of, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to tell them the way it is, and then I'm going to tell them again, and then I'm going to tell them one more time. I'm going to... It's power, and it's pushing through. Very driven, very results oriented. And there's nothing wrong with that energy, but that's not always the best approach. Also, super feminine energy. That is like kind of what I was saying about kind of one foot behind the other. And I'm just going to hang back here and let this energy play itself out a little bit. I'm not going to take myself totally out of the game, but really kind of obtuse feminine energy. And I'm not speaking about just women and men. We all carry masculine and feminine energy within us. So the feminine energy, when it's obtuse, as that's what I like to call it, it's overblown, is when it's like, I'm just going to be, it's kind of the spiritual bypassing that I was talking about in the intro. I'm just going to like pull back here because I know better, and I'm just going to I'm not going to allow myself to get hurt. I'm not going to allow myself to be vulnerable. I'm just going to totally pull back and go in my cave and meditate for 6 hours every day, and just it'll blow over. You're not in and of the life here on the planet. It's why you came. It's why you chose to be born. And we're shifting the age right now. It is tumultuous. There's a lot of chaos. But again, as I said in the intro, you're building your tensile strength. You are a piece of beautiful metal, any metal you want to choose, okay? You're this beautiful piece of metal, and you're just testing, how much can I stretch myself? And by that is stretching ways that you go about something as seemingly mundane as a conversation, as a situation, as a type of change that you want to institute in your life. Any of these things, it doesn't even have to involve another person. It can be you with you. Like, if I want to get on a new eating regime, like I need to, because my body is telling me this ain't working anymore. So how is that? How are you talking to yourself about that? What is going to be the most effective, self-honoring way to go about that? It's you with you. That's part of this too. So to me, the boldness is in being willing to let yourself try out. Maybe I do want to take a masculine approach on this, and maybe I do want to go in there and say, you know what? I have a great idea, and I just want to tell you about it because I'm excited about it. And it might not go anywhere, but my guess is you got the momentum built because you're excited. That's the key word. When you got passion, you can move worlds with that. That is the proper use of fire energy, is passion. And people eat that up with a spoon. They love it. When you get passionate about something, because you're putting energetically all of your energy behind it. That's one approach. But maybe you're like, I don't even know what the solution is, but I really admire my colleague or my supervisor so much because of their skill set. And I've done this because I so appreciate what my colleagues know how to do and what they're really good at that I'm not. It's not a skill I have. And we always come to a better, more well-rounded place. But you have to be bold like the badger for that magic to come out, your inner magician here, to come out when you want to try out maybe a different approach. And the badger with the black and the white together is, sometimes it is black, sometimes it is white. And just symbolically, the white is the masculine energy, the yang, and the yin is the black energy. Very receptive kind of energy. But it can become a wallflower too and have zero boundaries. So just know, like, what tact are you choosing to take, and know that you can change course, you can try different things. And I want to encourage you to kind of pre-try it. Just running it through, again, just like you were stepping on river stones, checking out, how does this feel to me? Does this feel like stable and kind of exciting, like I can really take a step forward here? Or maybe you choose that you're going to go on kind of a rocky step, but you have so much passion that you know the passion is what gives you the flexibility to still keep walking, to find the balance anyway. And all of those are good options. And any mix of them, you have many options. That's what your magician wants you to know. Take the time to test them out. All right, the last crystal. So this is known to me. I have 2 pieces of bornite in my collection. And this one is known to me as the star. And when I first held it, it reminds me of the star, again from the major arcana of the tarot, as I was discussing in the intro. So the star is it's such a magnificent card. I've really come to love it. I didn't really understand it when I first started working with the tarot, but I love it because it's a woman. It shows a woman who's completely naked, and she's on usually one knee by a riverbed. So she's kind of got part of her body on the earth, and she's got one foot in the water, and she's got these 2 jugs of water. And one is pouring out into the water, and one is pouring onto the earth. And she's the magical channel. That's what I love about the star. It is always hope and inspiration. That is its main message. And so that for you is what your inner magician wants to say to you. Is this sense of you are the conduit to your experience, and how you choose, how especially those moments when you can really make yourself vulnerable and you can really say, I mean, do you know how freeing it is? Have you ever experienced this feeling of being kind of in just an awkward situation or a complex situation or overwhelm? Remember in the intro I talked about the tensile strength. Overwhelm is a big message here. It's a matter of, like, sometimes you get stretched so thin and the stretching becomes more and more uncomfortable. That's the vulnerability showing up. And how freeing. Have you ever just said, maybe it's your child asking you, or a colleague at work, or your spouse, a family member, they really want to know the answer to something and are looking to you as the source. And it just feels so good to say, you know what, I don't know. And to not even make the promise that you're going to go figure it out and hand them the answer. And this is also to yourself, is situations that you are in where you are, I just see, like, you're just splayed out. Like, I don't know what more to give here. I've given you everything I got. I don't really have anything more to give here. And I'm fresh out of ideas. And I just keep getting this sense of, I see you with such, and again, this is a source of your inner magician. There is such freedom in being able to say, I don't know the answer. And the vulnerability comes in taking the steps forward anyway, and knowing when you have to take steps backwards so that you can change your direction, or to change direction on the fly, to be moldable, to be flexible. And the ultimate vulnerability is in not knowing, and to know that that's okay. And that we don't always have to be so industrious as we have, virtually all of us have been trained. Again, it's kind of a program of living as part of humanity, that we've got to have the answers. It's my life, and I need the answers. I am so guilty of this in my life. I'm going to scratch until I know every piece, and then I'm going to make up my mind, and then I'm going to have a belief that I can count on. Well, the star energy is not like that. The star energy knows that we live on a revolving planet, and as human beings with dynamic energy fields that are, sometimes they're enormous, and then when we aren't feeling well, and that's on any level, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, we tend to pull that energy field in close, and we almost get claustrophobic in that scenario, because our energy is meant to be shared and connected. But we do that out of kind of self-preservation. That's just energetically, it happens. You know, I've literally I measure it with people all the time using dowsing rods to show how big or small their energy field is. And that is all happening all the time. But to have the freedom, no matter whether you got a big old energy field or a really pulled in one, you know, the two extremes. Remember, there's kind of a spectrum energy here that I'm feeling, because I just feel you kind of splayed out. Like, I got nothing more to give. You've reached the bedrock here, you know? And it's just the freedom for you is the vulnerability, is being able to say, I don't know. And we just have to I'm going to keep taking the steps according to what feels right to me. And it's going to play itself out. It's something is going to happen. You can look back at the divine perfection in the timing of how your life has unfolded. If you look back at all the steps you've taken, whether you're talking about your career, a very important relationship in your life, your health, anything, there is divine perfection in it. You know, it's really pretty fascinating to look at from a career standpoint, is how maybe the difficulties, those kind of gritty moments when we experience challenge in a particular job, how that really equipped you so well for whatever you moved on to beyond that. Divine timing and perfection is always at play. And the star is just a reminder of this energy that your inner magician wants to remind you of. It's this sense of there's always hope. And you can be, the good news about being, if there's some of you who are feeling like you are at the bottom of the barrel, I totally get you, because I've had some moments like that. You really like scraping the bottom of the barrel. And in those moments, the only place to go is up. And I know that might not seem like much of a consolation if you're in that place, but the star wants to give you its message of hope and inspiration, which is drawn from within you. It's from within you. And how freeing it is to say, I don't know what's going to happen. I get this. I have a cancer diagnosis. I don't know what's going to happen. But I have hope and inspiration about some possibilities that science can't quite figure out, but I get it, and I'm working with it. And people can say, that's a pipe dream. What the heck? Are you losing your mind? It's my pipe dream. It's my life. You know? So it's so freeing to just be able to say, I don't have it figured out. I don't know. But we live on a dynamic, changing, ever-evolving, literally revolving planet. Where the moon is changing phases all the time. The tides are coming in and out. The seasons are shifting around. You know, people go through the stages of their life. Like, we have cycles everywhere. We never stay the same. So to think that we can figure everything out is just not sustainable. And there is tremendous, it shows, in my opinion, incredible integrity, strength, and grace to take on this energy of the star that is being offered to you in this reading. It is the most grace-filled message and energy that I could imagine, because it's saying, I don't know what is going to occur, but I'm going to go ahead and take the step that feels right to me, and this is key here, right in this now moment. This is how I'm feeling, and I feel an inspiration, I feel a drive, I feel a desire to move ahead on something, to take just one step, even if that's a baby step, because this feels right. I want you to notice what feels good in your body, because when we open up to that ultimate vulnerability, like the naked lady, you know, she's super balanced though. She might not have any clothing on her back, but she's got one foot in the water. That's her intuition and emotional intelligence, and one part of her on the earth, which is grounded and paying attention to practical matters and taking in and being a part of life here on earth, not hiding away. When you combine all that together, that's all the data that you can use to feel what feels best to you in that moment. And that can change moment to moment, and it's all okay. It's a flawed premise, especially as 5D energy comes in to the planet, and it's already here. And it's going to be a wave that's going to be so big, you know, over time. I mean, this is going to be a long haul here, but in a very good direction. That we will less and less feel like we got to figure it all out. Like, I go to school for this, I go to college for this, and then I get this kind of job, and I chink up the ladder, and then I retire with a golden parachute and have the beautiful home and the boats and the trips and the blah, 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 blah. Not that that's the dream for everybody, but I'm talking very typical. These are super old structures. Again, our Earth is a revolving planet. It is always changing. And your dream and your inspiration and your hope can change with it. So allowing yourself the freedom, that's what your inner magician wants to say. I'm very long-winded on this reading. Your spirit animal is some buddies of mine. What's interesting about your card is, as I was shuffling, this one just went boom. It just dropped. It's what I call a drop. It just dropped out. And to me, it's like a mic drop. It's like, but of course it is this. I feel like I want to have like some massive, famous movie voice, you know, and this is the message. Boom, you know. So this is interesting. You have crow spirit, and just I mentioned to my husband this morning, the crows are all out today, like just cawing from the early morning on, and they've been flying all over the place. I've been seeing them everywhere. So this is very strong energy today when I'm recording this, which is Saturday, October 3rd, okay? The crow spirit says co-create with spirit. This is the star energy, and the crow has a huge spiritual connection, but you, like the magician, being a co-creator of that. The crow is this deeply feminine energy, actually, because of the black feathers. And when you look at some of those feathers, oh, this is beautiful how that was just given to me. When you look, if you're able to look at some of the feathers, there is this iridescence of purple and blue. That's what's in this piece of bornite. That's why I knew it was the star. It's that some of the most beautiful images from the cosmos often shows that very deep blue color that almost looks black, of the sky, but then sort of that Milky Way feeling, which often has purple, but also light, of course, white, shining light in it, but this purpley color, just very much of the divine. And that's how I think of the star. That's why I came to that with this piece of bornite. And that the crow has these feathers that have those colors in it. But you have to look, the key is looking really closely. And not, what I'm getting from the crow here is just what I was saying before about don't just take the programmed response. Don't just feel, okay, this is how it goes, I graduate from high school, then I go to college, that's when I meet the person that I'm going to marry, and then we're going to have kids, we're going to have 2.5 kids, and the New England Cape with a farmer's porch on the front, and I'm going to drive this kind of car, and I'm going to retire at this age, and this is what I'm going to do Are you exhausted yet? Like, holy crumb. It's just picking up a cookie mold that's on the counter, and there's so many cookie molds. But you're just picking it up and like, yep, okay, that's what we're going to do. And there's no potential for something deeper, something more meaningful to you. And the star card and the crow asks you to look at this grander possibilities and to say, I don't know what's going to happen, but you know what? I'm going to get my foot in the door and go in at this particular level for a certain job, let's say. Maybe not anything you would have ever considered in your past, but in the now moment, it just feels so freeing that you can choose to do anything you wish. You can go in and have that very sort of low levels, like zero stress kind of a job. And then you may decide, I want to move around. Or maybe you decide that you really love that because you just want simplicity in your life. And you just want to be able to pay your bills and come home at night and enjoy the surroundings that are yours. They're of your creation. There's tremendous pride in this energy in terms of just the purposefulness of your creations on this planet. That's what the magician's all about. But to have the freedom of the star speaking here as well, is that there's just an incredible freedom in being able to say, I don't know, I'm splayed out like this. I'm willing to be in and of the world to see how my own inner magician is delivering back to me. Because I remember the infinity symbol above that magician's head, your magician's head. From this now moment, this is what feels right to me. So I'm gonna take this step. Boom, I'm putting energy out into the world. I'm sending the email, I'm making the phone call, I'm having the interview, I'm having that conversation. I'm taking that step to sign up for exercise classes. I'm whatever. Boom, I'm taking that step. And then the magician, this energy of it, it's almost like a boomerang. I don't quite want to call it that, but it's pretty close. It's like this boomerang energy because you're bringing yourself to it. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going into this knowing that this feels right to me. I almost feel like what I want to say, it's so important that it just feels right to you. You really just, and that you don't have to figure it all out. Please, and in fact, please don't. Because this is the magic that will be, and already is, this 5D energy that is on the planet at this point. It's simply, I'm not trying to be esoteric here, it simply is just a different vibrational level of energy that is now available on the planet. It's showing up more and more. And you see it by win-win situations, by just natural equality of things. But in the meantime, there's a lot of like figuring out the two ends of the spectrum. That's what it's like, just like you with your arms stretched out, like there's all this spectrum, but in the middle is your heart. You know, you have to really feel into what feels best to you, and all you can do is to operate from the now moment. So it might feel really good to have a cup of coffee on this particular day, but tomorrow you wake up and you're like, nope. And there's just no set program. It doesn't feel like that works for you. There is much more joy and passion, and especially the word freedom, in taking a very courageous but also incredibly graceful step forward in the not knowing, but it feels right. It doesn't need to make sense to any other person on the planet, but it feels best and right to you just right now. And that's all we can do every single day. Okay? There we go, everybody. Ooh-wee, long reading, over an hour, holy smokes. So I hope you enjoyed that. Anybody looking for a personalized reading, I do card readings, and I also do astrology type readings at bluesky-shop, shoppe.com. But it is my privilege, my pleasure to do these readings. I try for every week, but don't always. Again, honor yourself. That's a key part of this week's message. Honor you. And if you need to just step back a little bit and focus on some other things, do it. Because you bring then the more of you, the fullness of you, when you bring that vitality and that passion and that desire and all of that to the forefront when you're ready, on your timing. Have a good week.